Every year around Christmas, I see memes like this that say that Jesus is just a retelling of the ancient myth of Horus. And when you boil it down, what's really being said is that the life of Jesus, including his birth, which is what we celebrate at Christmas, is a total ripoff of ancient myths. And if that's true, that's a knockout punch against Christianity. I mean, there's no point in being a Christian or celebrating Christmas if Jesus Christ never existed, right? My inner Christmas fanatic is dying a little. Sorry, buddy. Christmas might be canceled this year. But the first thing that pops into my mind is that Jesus of Nazareth is believed by the majority of scholars, even skeptical scholars, to have been a real historical figure. There's even a Truth Snack episode about it, because what's the point of this channel if Christianity is a sham? It seems that the primary conclusion of this meme is not true. So, problem solved, right? Well, not really. To be fair to the challenge of this meme, it's possible that Jesus lived but was mythicized over time, slowly being given stories and miracles from myths. Now, I know where to find the story of Jesus' life, but I don't know where to read the primary text on Horus, and online searches were not very helpful. So rather than just kind of giving up or believing whatever it is I want to believe, I decided I was actually going to go to the library. So we're here. Let's get in there and try to sort this thing out. I learned my first lesson pretty soon after arriving at the library. These ancient Egyptian myths about Horus morphed and changed over millennia, and they're drawn from poems and sculptures and hieroglyphs. It's not at all like the Book of Luke, for example, which begins by clearly laying out that it was researched and organized to fact-check the life of Jesus. Sadly, it wasn't going to be as easy as putting the two texts next to each other and circling the similarities. So after about 5 hours at the library, I understood the basic tale of Horus. And along the way, I fact-checked the details of our meme. So here's what I found. 1. Horus wasn't born of a virgin. His parents were Isis and Osiris. 2. There's no indication of when he was born or that it was celebrated on the 25th. And what we know for sure about Jesus was that he wasn't born on the 25th. And that date wasn't used for Christmas until the 4th century, not at the origins of Christianity. 3. In no account I read was there a star or any other comparison with wise men. Horus was born in a swamp. 4. This one's interesting because Typhon might be another name for Seth, the brother of Horus, who he often fought with. So it's no surprise that he fled in Egypt since they were both Egyptian gods. But it's not much like the story of baby Jesus' parents fleeing the tyrannical king of Judea to Egypt, but there's a loose comparison there. 5. There are no accounts of him teaching in the temple. 6. I could only find one scholar who made a connection between Anup maybe being another name for Anubis, who was involved in ceremonial washing. The problem is that Anubis and Horus don't share the same stories. 7. Horus did have 4 demigod followers, but there's no mention of 12 disciples. 8. Being a god, of course Horus performed miracles, but there's no account of him walking on water. 9. Or raising anyone from the dead. 10. I couldn't find anything about him being transfigured on a mount. 11. Horus titles include Lord of the Sky and God of the East, but I couldn't find anything used of Jesus, certainly not Jewish titles like Messiah or Son of Man. And 12. Horus was not crucified. One late form of Horus was connected to sun worship, a sort of daily death and resurrection, but again, it's nothing like Jesus being put in a tomb and physically coming back from the dead 3 days later. After taking a closer look at both accounts, I think it's clear that Jesus isn't a simple retelling of Horus, and any similarities that do remain really need to be stretched to fit the life of Jesus. It seems that there isn't a real connection between Horus and Christ. But then I found this and this, comparing Jesus to 4 more myths, including Krishna, Dionysus, Attis, Mithras, and I thought, no, I cannot be doing this all week. I still have Christmas shopping to do. So it's time to consult some experts like Dr. Mike Licona. Am I name dropping? Of course not, because Oprah once told me name dropping isn't cool, so I don't do it. The point is that Dr. Mike Licona is a New Testament scholar who has addressed the trend of comparing Jesus to a variety of different myths, and his simple question is this: why would Christians borrow from pagan religions if the Christian account actually happened? You see, the gospel accounts are 1st century biography of Jesus' life, and Dr. Licona argues that many of the details are historically verifiable. You see, the New Testament just isn't a myth. Online, you can find impressive comparisons between Abraham Lincoln and John F. Kennedy, both married 24-year-old brunettes who spoke French, that kind of stuff. Dr. Licona uses examples like this to show that similarities, even if real, don't matter unless you can show there's a causal link between them. So in the case of Jesus, you would need to show that the devout Jewish writers of the New Testament knew all of these myths and that they would have taken these myths to fabricate the life of Jesus. But Dr. Mark Foreman writes the exact opposite is true, that Judaism would not have taken from other religions, and, quote, Christianity was even more exclusivistic and has often been referred to as the anti-mystery religion. Dr. Foreman actually challenges skeptics to present their evidence otherwise. Okay, lastly, even atheist New Testament scholar Bart Ehrman discards the myth hypothesis, saying, where do any of the ancient sources speak of a divine man who was crucified as an atonement for sins? So far as I know, there are no parallels to the central Christian claim. You see, similarities between Jesus and myths seem few and far between, and where they happen to exist, scholars don't really see it as a challenge to the New Testament accounts of Jesus' life. But there is one last sincere question to ask. If there isn't much to this trend, where did it come from? A few scholars link it back to anti-Semitic German theology in the 19th century, scholarship that wanted to do away with the Jewishness of Jesus by framing him against the backdrop of pagan religions instead of seeing him as the first century Jew that he was. It's scholarship that has since been discarded by experts, but it still echoes online. So is Jesus a retelling of pagan myths? So many scholars just don't buy it. They take Jesus as a historical person to be individually assessed. The question they ask is the question we all need to ask at Christmas, which is, who was Jesus and why is he celebrated? So, looks like Christmas is back on the calendar, but I'm just some guy online telling you what to think, so I've linked a bunch of resources below so you can do your own research. If you enjoyed the video, please share it, and don't forget to have a very merry, non-mythical Christmas.